We are live on YouTube. Natalie, you may take off, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to WMEA's 6th annual conference and our 8th and final presentation. It has been a pleasure to see many of you over the past 2 weeks. Some of you have come to a lot of sessions, and some of you are first timers, but welcome anyway, and so grateful to have you. I'm Natalie Sarrazin, Executive Director of WMEA, and I welcome you on behalf of the organization. Before we begin, I'd like to thank the incredible work done by our president, Ritesh Kokar, secretary, Rupika Bhatia, and the hard work of our social media team, led by Amit Raj Kashyap, including Ashish Karketa, Jasper Levy, Pem Kashak, Vibhav Singh, Purvi Sharma, and our editor, Priya Chaturvedi. I'd also like to give special thanks to our immediate past president, Anjali Mata, for all of her hard work and dedication to the organization. We had such a great lineup of speakers, and today you're joining us for one more great speaker, our last one on the conference, and our only one on voice, so that's wonderful to have her. Now, first I'd like you to hear a word from one of our sponsors, AIM, Australian Institute of Music, who's supporting us as an associate sponsor this year. AIM is committed to multiple workshops with WMEA in 2021, with workshops scheduled in January on contemporary performance, music production compositions, and classical performance conducted by senior faculty. Details available on WMEA.in very soon. So let's hear a word from AIM. And for today's session, we actually have a separate sponsor. We have the Global Music Institute from Delhi. So we have some ads from them. So let's take a look at the Global Music Institute. Wonderful. We hope that you will support these wonderful WMEA sponsors. Again, it's been wonderful to see all of you over the past few weeks. You
Natalie,
are
there's
back.
one more. There's one more video for
Sorry.
them.
All right. Okay. One more from GMI. Okay. it's so nice to see their wonderful campus. It's gorgeous. All right, so we hope you'll support our sponsors that have supported us over the past 2 weeks. So you guys are the backbone of WMEA, and I'd like to strongly encourage you to join WMEA NAFME and support music education as your profession. We have numerous workshops planned in the coming year, all of which you'll be able to take advantage of at a discount if you join. Please go to our website, wmea.in, and you can join right on the website. And now it's my privilege to introduce today's and our final guest presenter, Karolina Beimcik. Karolina was born in Poland. She trained as a classical violinist and jazz singer. She drew from many influences, including Polish and Ukrainian folk music and poetry. In addition to her master's degree in jazz performance, which she obtained at Queens College in New York City, Karolina also earned her MA in cultural studies at Adam Mickiewicz University in Poland. Inspired by the world around her and fascinated by her fellow human, one of the focuses of Karolina's work is the function of society in interpersonal relationships. Following her passion, in September 2017, Karolina became artist in residence in Morocco, where she studied its culture and many different styles of traditional Moroccan music. In 2019, she became a curator of Project Komeda, Stories Written with Sounds, a project supported by the Polish Ministry of Culture and Heritage. It consists of a series of musical and visual events related to the 50th anniversary of Krzysztof Komeda's death, an acclaimed Polish movie composer known for his collaboration with Roman Polanski. And now I welcome our final presenter of our wonderful conference. Thank you again for joining us, and I give you Karolina. Thank you.
Hello. Today, I would like to talk about integrated approach to human voice, specifically in the context of singing class. There are many different definitions of what voice therapy is, and each one depends on the field in which it is considered. It can be seen in the light of medical treatment of specific disorders of the vocal tract with the use of medications or surgical treatment. Another way of understanding the voice therapy is that it is designed to treat the most common underlying cause of voice disorders, voice misuse and abuse. In this sense, the voice therapy can help eliminate harmful voice habits through proper voice technique. It is known as speech and language therapy, which is directed at treating a broad spectrum of communication disorders. From a purely psychotherapeutic point of view, voice therapy is a part of a larger field known as music psychotherapy, the common goals of which include increasing self-awareness, constructing and repairing a sense of identity, resolving traumatic experiences, self-expression, and improve interpersonal behaviors, according to Kenneth Brucia and his book, The Dynamic of Music Psychotherapy. Suzanne Eken, author and vocal professor at the Royal Academy of Music of Denmark, points out the fact that last 40 years have seen significant developments in the study of psychotherapy, which may, in her opinion, be utilized in training the professional voice. In her opinion, both general psychology and body psychotherapy are useful in understanding voice. Both psychotherapy, body psychotherapy is associated with Alexander Lowen, an American psychotherapist who founded a field called bioenergetics that is based upon continuity between body and mind and study of the human personality in terms of energetic process. Within these disciplines, Eken finds a clear correlations between the mental and physical processes that influence the development of voice. Quoting, bioenergetics rests on the simple proposition that each person is his body. No person exists apart from the living body, in which he has existence and through which he expresses himself and relates to the world around him. If you are your body and your body is you, then it expresses who you are. It is your way of being in the world. Bioenergetic analysis starts with the reality of the body and its basic functions of motility and expressions. In this understanding, working with the human voice takes into consideration that psychological and physiological mechanisms are inseparable, and that the character of a voice is inherently linked with a human being's personality and inner life. The holistic view of human nature that encompasses both mind and body, both emotions and soma, sees the voice's quality, sound and dynamics as a unique relation to the individual singer or speaker's psyche. In this context also, voice is an integral part of a singer's self-perception that considers the whole person rather than the isolated production of sound from personality. In her book, The Human Voice, Psyche, Soma, Function, Communication, Susan Eken explains that bioenergetic analysis can be helpful for voice teachers to understand vocal problems in a larger perspective. Although regular voice classes are not designed to work through emotional difficulties of a student, and one should not therefore take a role of psychotherapeutic counselor in practice, working with voice is based on emotions and being aware of potential situations that may arise while performing voice exercises or songs might be helpful. Bioenergetic analysis pays attention to the bodily expression as gestures, mimics, voice, and breathing patterns, and categorize different types of human body. Eken uses knowledge about those body types within voice training based on their hyper or hypo functions to make a distinctions between the overly tensed or rigid areas in our body and the insufficiently toned or collapsed areas. Every human being represents itself as a mix of different types in our body structure, and bioenergetic helps to locate them. The author explains that although it is possible to conduct analysis based on our observations only, blockages are rooted in a mental physical complex. Whenever we correct a physical posture or pattern may trigger mental conflicts and resistance, as changing the physical structure changes the psychology as well. Following Lowen's view on human body and its interpretation in the context of voice teaching by Eken, some of the vocal exercises in case of dealing with rigid areas would consider such possible distinctive features as tension in the upper body, cramped protruding the solar plexus area, strained back, exaggerated lumbar curvature, overstretched legs, tense and stretched neck, and in general, overstrained and hard to loosen muscles. The voice exercises in case of the collapsed area would involve work with shoulders that might be sloping, slightly sunken chest, a retracted solar plexus area, and working on coordination between legs and chest to avoid encountering the inadequate vocal compression. The goal here is to achieve proper tension in muscles and build the muscular activity to establish the ideal posture for the vocal function. The body-oriented therapies expanded the understanding of vocal technique and put it in a broader context of psychophysical dependencies. Work on vocal tensions is placed in a different perspective also if they are analyzed not only within an isolated muscle or group of muscles around the vocal tract, but in correlation to the other body members and muscles. 3 types of dependencies can be pointed out. Patterns of involvement, patterns of movement in one part of the body are inseparable from patterns of movement in the whole body. Patterns of movement are inseparable from patterns of thought. Patterns of thought, including such things as performance anxiety, are inseparable from patterns of movement. This approach constitutes the foundation of the Alexander technique. Awareness-based Alexander technique was developed by Frederick Matthias Alexander, an actor in Australia in the 1890s, initially as a method to heal his own vocal strain, and gradually it also improved his use of the whole body and mind. The Alexander technique is considered to be primary and educational process to be practiced by the student rather than a curative treatment or therapy, and can be called a path of learning by direct experience and self-observation. Pedro de Alcantara, in his book Indirect Procedures, describes how we have learned to separate mind and body, and how these old dichotomies remain until today. He writes, start quotation, "We admire an athlete's body and a university professor's mind. Symptomatic of this dichotomy is that we see the workings of the body as separated from behavior of the body's owner. My shoulders are tight, we say, or I have a weak back, not I'm tightening my shoulders, not I misuse my back," end of quotation. Alexander technique, psychophysical dependencies, calls the unity of the self. That allows to consider the voice as something which reflects who we are and how through the voice we use the self. It includes vocabulary, intonation, and gesticulation, and it's linked to the use of the arms, neck, shoulders, back as well. Alexander introduces the idea of primary control. According to this concept, every localized action, the activity of hands, fingers, lips, tongue, and jaw, should be executed in harmony with the coordination of the head, neck, and back. The activity of the body is described here as a self in living, called also by Alexander promoters as postural behavior. In this understanding, the way we sing or the way we work with our voice, breathing, is inseparable from how we stand and how we move. Alexander technique provides practical tools for development, kinesthetic awareness, and understanding that there is no right way to move or sit. There is only good use and balanced coordination or misuse. In this light, how we use our voice is inseparable from how we think and how we move our body, including appropriate muscle tension in one place and relaxing the other parts of the body. Alexander technique indicates that the word tension has acquired a negative connotation, which in itself is not negative at all, but rather allows us to relax other parts of the body, supports them, and keep them active. As Pedro Alcantara describes in his book, the tension is good if it's a good kind and amount of tension in a right place for a right amount of time. According to Alexander technique, the primary source of any habit change is awareness. It allows us to delve into the process and reactions of our bodies, as well as to experience the unity of self. The most precious resource is that we can't change what we are not aware of. Here, important point is that awareness has many dimensions. If it's compared only with concentration, focus, it has a single dimension. As we become aware of our patterns, we can ask questions and explore what is necessary and what is not. It's the opposite of judgment, which makes assumption in advance and tends to depend on wrong preconceived ideas. Here, both Alexander technique and body-oriented psychotherapy of Alexander Lowen propose an approach that might be called re-education of breathing. Alexander Lowen, in his book, The Voice of Body, writes, start quotation, "It is a common belief that we breathe with our lungs alone, but in point of fact, the work of breathing is done by the whole body. The lungs play a passive role in the respiratory process. Their expansion is produced by an enlargement, mostly downward, of the thoracic cavity, and they collapse when the cavity is reduced. Proper breathing involves the muscles of the head, neck, throat, thorax, and abdomen. It can be shown that chronic tension in any part of the body, musculature, interferes with the natural respiratory movements. End of quotation. The similar description we can find in Alexander technique. In all these contractions, starting quotation, in all these contractions and expansions of the torso, the floor of the cavity, diaphragm, plays its part, moving upwards and downwards in sympathy with the particular adjustment of the bony torso. If the torso expanded correctly, the lungs will at once be filled with air with atmospheric pressure, exactly as a pair of bellows is filled when the handles are pulled apart. End of quotation. In this understanding, the best breathing is based on the natural reflex that we all possess. It springs the rib cage open, expands the back, and releases the abdominal wall on inhalation. The real task for singers is just not to do more work, but to learn how to do less, and allow the reflexive breathing mechanism remain undisturbed and work in its own natural way. Through Alexander technique, it is possible to experience exactly what it is like to breathe for singing without doing too much. An experience of it is as if a cage of held, tense muscles directly on top of the rib cage is suddenly lifted, which thereby allows the ribs to move easily and naturally. With repetitions of this felt experience, the body learns a new patterns of habits of opening the torso and allowing the breathing reflex to work. This pattern then can be integrated into a singer's vocal technique, thereby improving both the singer's breathing, support or breath resistance, and the resultant tone quality. I would like to present now a few exercises that can be examples of how we can work in vocal class and how we can adapt those different techniques to our everyday life. The exercises come from different fields and from different authors. And first is the exercise that comes from Alexander technique, and it is called constructive rest. Different name is an active rest. And constructive rest is something that might be practiced at home. Releases excess tension from the body parts like neck, throat, tongue, and jaw. The name active rest places the attention on this aspect of self-observation that might be focused on our own breathing patterns and on tuning to the natural rhythm of an inhale and exhale. It starts from the laying down in a comfortable position on a firm but comfortable surface. Preferably it's not a bed, but something like floor or yoga mat. The knees can be up or down, whichever we prefer, but having the knees up tends to relieve pressure on the lower back. By placing books beneath the head, we are allowing our head to align with the spine instead of tilting and dropping to the back. The arms should be placed with the elbows on the floor and the palms of the hand across the lower ribs. We may allow ourselves to be supported by the surface we are laying on and feel how it carries all of our weight. Any place that doesn't seem to touch the surface, we may let to sink in and relax. Alexander calls this action non-doing, which means that we don't do anything and we can let the gravity works for us. We may allow our weight to rest and be not disturbed and be focused on the following areas: the feet, the heels, the pads, the base of the big and little toes, the back of the pelvis, middle and upper back, the shoulder blades and the elbows, the back of the head, and also we can allow ourselves to lengthen and widen along the lines on the drawing. So following the direction, we think about our thighs, our arms, and following the direction of the of the drawing, we can see how we can imagine the tension going away in those directions. The next step of this procedure would be Alexander's whisper A. Sometimes it's called also silent A. Its role is to demonstrate the role of inhibition in breathing and vocal production, and simply for preparing ourselves to speak or sing without extra effort. The whisper A, which we can imagine as something which is a little bit louder H, teaches us to distinguish between the jaw joint and atlanto-occipital joint, which is where our head and spine meet in the center of our head. The space created by lengthening the spine and freeing away our head from the spine can help the torso to expand. It's worth to notice that this position helps when there is a tendency for the body to collapse and tilt, something that Susan Eken calls insufficiently toned body type, described earlier. There are a few steps in this procedure. Gentle and relaxed smile allows the soft palate to go up and open the passages of the throat. So gentle smile also relaxes all the muscles, cheekbones, and our cheeks. Tongue should lie on the floor of the mouth, touching the lower teeth, letting the jaw fall down and open the mouth naturally without tension. So jaw goes slightly toward the chest with a natural movement. Every exhale happens with a whispered A sound, and at the same time, you think up along your spine. On the inhale, the mouth are closed and the nostrils and the lungs are filled with air. While the exhale, the jaw again drops and the procedure repeats. The variation of this exercise represents the integration of voice production with body movement. It was introduced by voice coaches Joan Lader and Jessica Wolf, and might be inspiration for next variation adjusted to the voice class and needs of the student. One of the variation is that singer, after performing constructive rest in laying down sufficient amount of time, and after learning his or her body responses to the power of gravity and whisper A procedure, is that constructive rest can be repeated in a vertical position in a singing class. In the dynamic standing posture, we think up along the spine, the same way as it was in the laying down, allowing the abdominal muscles to stay relaxed, not to tighten any part of the body that could cause the tension, which closes the throat and restricts the breath. Instead, the torso is lengthened and widened, releasing the ribs and the throat. The feet receive in this position the full body weight. Here, especially, the rigid body should be warned to not lock the knees, as it can cause tension in upper body. The shoulders, exactly as in laying down, are moving apart, releasing any habitual tension in the chest and shoulder girdle. A vocal task is added after performing the whisper A. Each exercises begin with an exhalation and proceed to increasingly challenging vocal production. The inhalation here responds to a complete exhalation. After performing whisper A, smoothly from whisper silent A, the silent A becomes smoothly becomes a loud sound or heard audible sound. John Lader and Jessica Wolf proposed to change the whispered A to a silent syllables performed in the same manner. Afterwards, the silent count occurs, which is about to silently count from 1 to 10 using the articulators. This should be done without any effort. Gradually, continuing starts to be allowed. Next step is to perform whispered A that gradually changes into the sung vowel A on any comfortable pitch. So from silent whispered A, we can perform first very quiet sound, natural sound, which later becomes a vowel A, which is a smooth transition from the natural breath to actually create some concrete pitch. Constructive rest and its variations through loosening the tensions in one area remove the disturbance in others that consequently disturbs the balance of the body. Through the direct transition from whispered A to the sung vowel brings the element of spontaneity to the sound production. And this spontaneity, according to Susan Eken, whether in speech or singing, should retain. Otherwise, the sound becomes barren and artificial, and in turn inadequate as a medium for conveying emotions. Another exercise that belongs to the and integrates body movement with voice production derives from a voice specialist, Michelle Herman. The original version of this exercise comes from Light Smiley and Sharon Freed, a voice speech faculty at the Juilliard School and Shakespeare Theatre's Academy for Classical Acting. Michelle Herman created a warm-up that frees the body and voice through movement. What's important is that it can be performed in a small space, like practice room or room for vocal class. So there are no any restrictions needed if it comes to the place where it happens. The exercises include a rhythmic swing of the arms in coordination with breathing that smoothly changes into the sounds like lip trills blended into words and phrases. In this process, ribcage is stimulated through the physical action, while the voice production flows from the continuity of the free flow of movement. The exercise starts with standing with feet hip apart and toes facing forward. Arms are straight and start to swing over the head. Hands are open, facing forward, with fingers straight but not stretched. The arms swing back down, and they should reach around 30 degrees behind the body, and then swing upward again. Keeping attention to the posture is important also to not lean forward, especially while swinging the arms back down. First phase is about establish a rhythmic movement and its repetition, keeping the knees and hips joints loose. Then the attention should be placed on coordination of the breath with the arm swing. As the arms swing downward, we exhale through the relaxed lips. The inhale through a relaxed mouth during the next arm swing cycle. In the next step, we add phonation. It might be a descending glide on a lip trill. The trill begins when the arms swing downward. This should be repeated 4 times. A lip trill progresses to a siren glide, starting the lower range, gliding up as high as is comfortable and back down again. This should be repeated 4 times as well. The next stage begins with the lip trill that blends into a word. The focus here is on releasing the airflow for the vowel sound with the swing of the arms. The spontaneous reflexes are achieved here by the natural sound at the beginning, that ones that are unproblematic and easy. Those sounds are within the speaking range, and through sliding exercises, they smoothly shift from speech to singing. The same muscles are activated in both cases, and the same mode of thought and nervous impulses need to be released. The second exercise brings to mind exercises from Alexander Lowen's therapies that include breathing and movement. In this case, it is important to achieve the spontaneous voice that will be free from self-judgment and closer to the natural, original sound that emerges from the body. Apart from the technical advantages of performing voice exercises instead of relaxation and/or movement, there are also other psychological aspects of this approach. For a spontaneous voice here, is also something that doesn't belong to the traditional language of right versus wrong, neither to an analytical critical approach. In Alexander technique, we find 2 different types of performing any action: end gaining, and means whereby. The first type is goal-oriented, while the second one is focused on reflecting how we use ourselves when performing an action. Means whereby is an action without judgment, where we give up trying, avoiding feelings of right or wrong. We don't anticipate the outcome of our actions, and we don't criticize them afterward. Just like in case of the voice exercises that are based on self-observation and on experiencing the procedure for the sufficient amount of time. According to Maribeth Bouchdime, well-known vocal coach, creator of the program Core Singing, and the author of the book Dynamics of Singing, the key factors of the singing today are psychological aspects of working with students that include self-esteem, overcoming limitations and dealing with inner critique that makes it difficult to sing without sacrificing spontaneity, creativity, and intuition. In her opinion, drawing from many different fields in approach to voice teaching can direct it toward a new quality of learning, which is based on asking questions and not necessarily finding the right answer. This might sometimes lead to temporary sense of uncertainty, which in case of learning might be most powerful position to maintain. As Ellen Langer, a professor of psychology at Harvard University, wrote in her book, The Power of Mindful Learning, from a mindful perspective, however, uncertainty creates the freedom to discover meaning. If there are meaningful choices, there is uncertainty. If there is no choice, there is no uncertainty and no opportunity for control. The theory of mindfulness insists that uncertainty and the experience of personal control are inseparable more. Thank you.
That was really a very interesting topic. Karolina, can you please, you spoke about a lot of exercises. Could you please give us some demos of some exercises so we have a practical perspective of, understanding of it?
Of course.
Yeah.
Exercises that were described are combined, they combine, as I described, voice and body movement. And while moving with our body, we are focused on breathing in a natural rhythm, following the direction of our arms going up and down. And this is helpful for creating the sound that is more spontaneous. So instead of thinking before, we are more involved in rhythmic, repetitive exercise, and we don't judge the voice that comes out. That was the goal of the exercise, apart, of course, from warming up the muscles that are involved in breathing. Mm-hmm. And if it comes to the term I used, for example, lip trill, if this is what you would like me to present. So lip trills are looks like this. So in the exercise, when we are following the movement of our arms, we slide up and down accordingly to the movement. So it looks it should happen in a standing position. I don't have maybe that much space here, but in the standing position with your knees bent, so you feel relaxed. Because basically, according to Alexander Technique or Alexander Lowen and all this coordination and dependencies between all our body parts, when we overstretch our knees, overstrain our knees, it can have impact on our voice and on muscles that are around our vocal tract. So when we perform exercise on the bent knees, the whole upper body can also relax.
Right. So, what are some of the ways that students can sing incorrectly and hurt their voices, and what should we be looking for to avoid this?
Mhm. So this is, of course, a very vast topic, but following this philosophy that was presented, the most important part is self-awareness and observing the natural breath. Instead of forcing our muscles to learn some new breathing pattern for singing, according to philosophies I presented, we should follow the natural pattern of breathing and then apply it to singing. And in Alexander technique descriptions, we can find the theory, like what his ideas of breathing is that actually it would be more beneficial if we can learn how to breathe properly in everyday life and then bring it to singing. If we breathe properly in our everyday life, then singing would be easier for us.
Right.
And specifically, how to sing in more healthy way, and what derives of what was said about Alexander technique would be self-awareness in the laying down position, and first observing how our body reacts to simply laying down. In according to constructive rest exercise, floor is our answer. It shows us where we have tensions, where, for example, when we lay down and we feel that something is not right and we have to adjust ourselves a little bit, that's probably the place where there is a lot of tension. The gravity in this position works for us. And in this position, we can observe our body. And as it also was shown in the exercise, from this self-observation, we then bring this exercises into vertical position. And when we already adjusted to what we've learned in the laying down, we can repeat it and try to recreate it in the vertical position. So to sing in a healthy way, first, what probably would be important to consider is release all the tension and not be focused only on these parts of the body that are around our vocal tract and that we always associate with singing. But actually, sometimes it might be just about bending the knees slightly, or paying attention to how we stand and how our feet touch the floor.
Right. Could you please demonstrate the whispering A to singing A exercise?
Yes, of course. So whisper A is the sound that comes out with the exhalation. And important thing is to inhale through the nose. And when we exhale, we create the sound, whisper A sounds like this. In laying down position, while we exhale, we could feel in that moment how we sink to the floor even deeper. This is the silent whispered A. It reminds sometimes some of the students some breathing techniques from yoga and some Eastern disciplines, some Eastern philosophies and exercises. So that's something which deepens our breath, but according to Alexander, this breath still should be natural.
Okay. One of our participants has asked, how do you treat the vocal nodules naturally, and how do you strengthen the speaking vocal cords?
Mm-hmm. So the exercise I just showed, the one with lip rolls. That's the very good exercise. I can maybe also present how my warm-up looks like when I start the class. So my advice is always to start from not opening the mouth, creating sound with closed mouth, just in order to leave this, opening the throat, opening the mouth for later when we are already warmed up. After, of course, laying down, the constructive rest is usually the homework. In the class, there is not so much room. But in the class, I'm trying to pay attention to the posture, and then starting to create very simple, without judgment, sounds. So usually after breathing exercises, the sound should not naturally come out, and it's something like, it doesn't have to be also right pitch. So it might be just so something that comes naturally. Later on, this sound can switch to some chosen pitch. So it could be so it switches from the natural sound that is created without thinking to something that we intentionally want to sing, which is the chosen pitch. Next, I use some lip rolls. And first is just a lip roll. It can be on this slide we did in the exercise, which is or. So first I go up and down, moving half step up and down, just to warm up and stretch in the morning a little bit, my vocal cords. And then I'm trying to go from lip rolls to the particular vowel. So I'm trying to make this vowel sound very naturally without any tension, like it is in case of doing lip rolls. So it looks like this. I can choose either the vowel or the word. That also is very helpful when we want to work on the speaking voice. So for example, the lip roll can change into the word, let's say, brain. So I do rain, 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 rain. So it naturally comes out. And then I perform exercises on some simple melodies, like scales up and down, up to fifth. So it would be like something that is performed with half closed mouth and half open, or begins with closed mouth and starts to be gradually open. And this can be syllable moi. So it starts from very natural, like the sound we did at the beginning. And it can gradually go to moi. And it looks like this. Moi, 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 moi. Moi, 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 moi. And up and down.
Right. So I believe this has already answered the next question I had. Is like, could you please show us your warm-up routine that you typically follow with your students? So you have already answered that. Audience, would anybody have any questions to ask her? Any more questions to ask? I can unmute you if you like to ask her questions directly. You can just message me and I'll unmute you. Natalie, would you like to have any questions? Anything you want to ask?
No, those are great. The idea of just starting with the natural voice. I mean, I've taken, years of singing lessons also, but I mean, I know Alexander technique from piano and everything, but not from voice. But it's a whole new perspective, like just start from just natural and then bring in, just take it from there and kind of meld it in with the singing voice instead of starting with this kind of artificial way of manipulating, because so much starts with just this manipulation of the throat and the breathing and all that. So it's really interesting to kind of just dismiss all that and then just start with this really basic, idea of like the body first and then just whatever sound you produce, and then take that into like, okay, now we're going to learn to sing from there. So I thought that was really interesting. I did that picture you showed of the hormone technique, the warm up. It didn't have the breathing in the picture, so I don't know if you could demonstrate like it. Just you talked about it, but I can't. For me, I can't connect the visual with the thing. Can you show what the breathing is in those steps? There was 2 steps. One just standing and then swinging, and then the next one was 4 pictures. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. So when you take your arms up, so of course, maybe I will just be able to show a little bit. So when you stand, maybe you are able to see no, you are not able to see my knees, but imagine that my knees are bent. How it looks like is that when we take inhale, we bring our arms up. So this happens with inhale. And with exhale, we go down. And gradually, this can change into some vowels, some words, some phrases. And actually the speed kind of which gives us the exhale when we go down doesn't give us much time to think what I'm going to create now. It's just going so naturally. And this way, I believe for me, it was very wonderful discovery that I can finally find my voice, because I don't have time to think, oh, in this position, when you are down, you are not able to think, oh, maybe I can sing like this or that. It's coming, the pure you is coming out, your voice.
Well, I love that idea. That's fantastic. Like yeah, because students sometimes think way too much about making a sound and what sound am I going to make and how, but this way, so you do the, the lip rolls and then, or you could just do a sound and then just exhale and have something. All right. I love that. And then you just repeat that until they're comfortable with that. Great. I love that. Anybody else have questions?
One question is there, how can we introduce vocal singing to a beginner? Where to start exactly? I think that's what you have really discussed, but if you have any more inputs on that.
So the concept of no judgmental approach and just not really thinking if we sing in the right pitch or wrong, it's something that probably at the beginning would be very encouraging. And help us to discover what sound we really want, what sound actually is within us already, naturally, our natural talent. And depending on if it's group class or just one-to-one, there are exercises that actually can be based on spontaneity, like improvisation. Also, this improvisation can start from just not even syllables, but also with humming. So it might be just creating some lines, whatever comes to somebody's mind. Sometimes we can play a simple bass melody, or create with our voice simple melody for somebody, and then engage to conversation. Sometimes the simple questions like, could you tell me with your voice, just with the sound, without using words, could you tell me how do you feel today? And then the beginner, a person who just begins this adventure with voice, can respond also without really thinking about what sound I'm going to create. I just have to say, for example, I'm doing fine today, how I'm going to do it with my voice. And then the very amazing sounds can come out. And funny thing is that sometimes I can say from my experience that sometimes the funny situation is that when we ask someone to sing, and we ask someone to sing up high, sometimes someone says, I cannot do it, it's too high for me. But if there is this exercise just for fun, and I'm asking, tell me with your voice, just with the sound, how are you doing today? With the sound, with non-judgmental approach, they can create such a high notes just with creating, for example, I don't know, story about how happy they are today. And then when we switch again to warm-ups, regular warm-ups, then we can say, no, you cannot say you don't sing that high. You just show us that you, and it's a like kind of mind trick to overcome, these limitations and, lack of trust to our own voice.
We have Ashish who has some questions to ask you. Ashish, please, I think you can unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Karolina, for such a wonderful session. I'd like to really, personally thank you for that. I have a question. I teach in a girls' school, and we have open air programs in the evening specifically. So, would you guide me or guide us specifically? Is there any sort of quick warm up that we can have for students, especially girls? In the open area, and especially in the evening, looking in perspective the Indian environment. Like if we have a concert, like a Christmas concert that we have it in the open area, in the open grounds. So, and especially it's cold. So is there any quick warm up that you would suggest for the girls that we can have for like, just before the concert to start?
I think that the major thing here, the crucial thing is that it's in an open space and it's cold. So probably I wouldn't do any warm-ups before the concert in the evening with the open mouth, just to avoid getting the cold air into the throat, right, inside. So I would do warm-ups with closed mouth, and maybe the good choice would be actually the sounds like just humming. Any exercise that are accessible, like scale or triads, like and going half step up and down. But for sure, the best would be to not open the mouth in the cold. And maybe some body warm-ups could be also good. I think that it would be just simple, even clapping hands and connect somehow, creating sounds with at least hands, arm movement.
Yeah. Karolina, I have a question for you. And this might be a little off the topic because I feel that, this is more for people who are like, in a very prepared situation for singing. Like what happens is that I have played with a lot of bands in my life, like a lot of bands, and we have played at odd hours. Like Ashish is talking about, evening time concerts, and these girls are like, they need a warm up and all those things. I have had singers who have been having a pizza and a Coke just before they get on stage in the belt out a 2-hour concert, running around, no postures involved, like, So, is it something that they are missing a point, or is it something that everybody does need this warm ups and a proper technique, or are some people natural with it? How does it really work? Because this whole concept of warm up and being aware of your posture and your body and how you inhale, with a lot of singers who are not trained and are naturally very good with it, I've seen it, and they naturally have all these things together. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Probably it's very personal, and everybody just do what they need and what suits their voice in that particular moment. I'm not sure what, like, it can be that for some of singers, different, whatever they eat or drink, maybe it doesn't harm them. But for many of us, there are some steps should be taken to take care of our voice. But I believe that everything that suits anyone, it's good to follow. Although sometimes it can be risky. I'm wondering, yes, it's just if we can probably answer that, oh, this is fine for me, I never had any problems, then probably fine. Nobody is going to force anyone to change.
I think my question was more like, are these techniques and warm-ups that you're talking specific to classical singing, or does it also apply to contemporary in the same way? Because they don't need to have a great voice projection because they have a microphone, right? And because one hand is already occupied with the microphone, their posture, like, is very different than singing in a choir where you can actually have your arms hanging loose and like pay attention to your posture. So are there something different, some different exercises that may be more specific to contemporary singers?
So these exercises are actually also for contemporary singers, but maybe it's the case that because even if we have microphone in our hands, that doesn't change that the voice emission, proper voice emission, should be done outside the outside the studio. And before we take the microphone to our hands, the voice emission should be already ready. Even the microphone doesn't change anything, and these exercises can be easily performed by the contemporary singers, by the singers who perform contemporary repertoire.
Because in my interaction with some of the senior singers, especially the contemporarily trained singers who only have sung contemporary voice in their life, they've studied a bit of classical, but they're like, the classical training is more focused on the voice projection, because in those days they did not have microphones. They had to sing in opera halls where they're like, singing to a 5-story high building and without a microphone, that they really had to project their voice. Now with the contemporary voice, they have to project their voice, but not as much because their voices are amplified. So they pay more attention to how they produce the voice. Do they want a head voice, or how do they control their tone, and how do they change their tone to different songs and things like that. So they focus more on the variety of tones and then the projection and things like that. So you're telling me that these exercises are equally valid in both ways, both genres of music.
Yes, especially that usually the problem is with extending the vocal range, and this doesn't change. So it's not only about the production, about the quality of the voice that we produce, but also how high and low we can go. So I think that it's always a task for all vocalists, that how we sound actually in the higher register, higher register. So for example, there are singers who can sound amazing in the middle range, and then can have specific questions about the sound in the higher range. And then there are exercises, these exercises can be used, and some body tension, mostly in our back areas or shoulders, neck, can many times limit us for reaching these higher notes. Therefore, these exercises might be easily used for contemporary
Right. We have a question from Lijo John, who is a conductor, and he was actually the winning conductor for our last competition, I think.
Yeah, hi Ritesh, hi Natalie. Hello Carolina, thank you for a wonderful session. Yeah, my question has two parts. Basically, since we are dealing with school kids mostly of all different age range, now that one thing, would you suggest a similar what is that warm up for both boys and girls of all age groups, or is it dependent on voice range or vocal part? Say if I've got boys singing the bass line and the girls singing the soprano part, so would you suggest, are there specific particular warm up exercises dependent on voice range also? Secondly, now since we're in school environment, sometimes we have situations where it's like, hey, we have you got a performance in you got a performance in 5 minutes. You got a performance in 5 minutes, and how do you prepare for that? Okay, we got a quick warm up. Now we are dealing with young school kids from class 1 to class 12. Now they're talkative all the way through. So sometimes we have in winters we have a break at 11, and suddenly we have an assembly. So they're in the break, the choir is in the break. So what do you suggest is a good take back for these kids to develop a habit of like, warming up while they are with the general crowd, I would say, like, not with the music crowd throughout, while they are within the general crowd as well. So two things: one is, are there different exercises for voices, and secondly, what are the quick ways to just get there? 5 minutes, okay, we are on stage and we are ready, like, so sometimes you're out in the crowd and you have to perform immediately.
Could you just repeat how old are they?
We have like specifically for our choirs, we have students like 9 years up till 17 to 18 years. So it's a wide range.
Okay, so the first question, if there are different exercises for boys and for girls, so I don't perform different exercises. These are just one set of exercises and one approach, although whoever comes to the class, always the voice emission is always adjusted individually, because the voices, it's like always new discovery. Whoever comes to the class, it's like new discovery, and some things works for one person and the same exercise doesn't work for the other person. That's why sometimes the exercises should be should be variated somehow, so adjusted to the possibilities and to actual needs and problems students has. So that's one thing. So I don't make any difference in exercises for boys or girls. So that stays the same, but each exercise is adjusted to each person. If it comes to exercises for, you mentioned that are there exercises for different kinds of voices? That also depends on what is the problem within this one voice we are dealing with, right? So for example, if there is someone who is a male and for example, his lower register sounds wonderful, but he has problems with going up high, then some exercises are just adjusted to the need. And if it comes to the second question, the quick warm-up, one thing about the kids that are 9 years old, that needs a lot of routine and like self-motivation to do warm-ups every day. Like we adults, for example, or self-aware students, we choose, for example, vocal performance program. So that's, of course, obvious that there is this self-motivation and the task coming from the teacher that please perform this warm-up, this will be helpful, that will come easy to those students. But if it comes to the kids and telling them, please warm up every day, wake up and warm up your voice every day, of course, that will be very challenging. That's why for kids, warm-ups, at least in my experience, they're always based on some fun exercises, fun, just inventing some games and plays. And if it comes to the quick warm-up before the performance, I always use this warm-up with closed mouth because I don't want to, for example, overstrain my vocal cords. So this will be the same exercise as on open air, or some variations, it depends. Or if it comes to just settle in the song before the performance, adjust the position and everything to performing the song, then I hum the song from the beginning till the end, very slowly. So I go through each and every note very slowly, and that's my warm-up for the song.
Yes, thank you, Karolina.
Yeah, we have one last question is, can you demonstrate an exercise to improve intonation for a student whose intonation is fairly good? So from fairly good to an excellent, how do you make the transition with the intonation? What kind of exercises can they pursue?
Mm-hmm. So here I always implement some exercises from ear training. Before voice emission, there is ability to hear the note first correctly, to understand the sound, to understand the pitch, and then perform the speech. So first there are just exercises that I play some intervals and I ask to repeat them. So these are not warm-up exercises, but these are just very slow exercises in slow tempo that are just about hearing the note, and before singing the note, just imagine first the sound and then try to get into the right pitch. And what I'm doing is that I play the interval, I ask to sing the note, and also with closed mouth, I ask to reach to that note, and because closed mouth are helping us to actually hear this note a little bit more. That's at least my experience, because when we open the mouth, already some kind of projection is happening, and it can kind of fake the what we hear. But hearing this without, our tool, which is our head here, right? And just closing mouth and hearing this note internally helps to reach this interval, this pitch correctly. And only afterwards, when I hear that student can reach that note correctly, then I work on the right voice emission, how to reach to that note, let's say on the vowel or consonant, whatever, but how to reach to that note and produce it with a good quality sound. But first is imagine the note and then sing it. The other thing which is very helpful, at least from what I observed, is that the problems with pitch mostly occur when we, for example, go up. And there is a problem because sometimes going up causes us looking up, and that already brings some association that it's a struggle, and therefore each and every note starts to be lower and lower and lower, and we're thinking like we are climbing up the stairs or the mountain, and it's so hard to get to the top. But a nice mental trick we can do is that first is that when we want to sing the interval, like jump from one note to another, we can imagine that instead of jumping up, we are already on top and we are just looking at the note from above. That's kind of the mental trick. So instead of, for example, doing like, right? So we are so scared and we strain already the muscles of our neck and throat. Then instead of doing this, we can even look down when we sing the higher note. So what I perform is C, C, and if it comes to performing some scale-like movement up, like nay, 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 I imagine nay, 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 nay. I hope it answered the...
Yes, I'm sure it did. Yeah, that's a very difficult thing to do in your mind, to just go up in the pitch and look down. It's like it's like paradigm shift really. There's one question from YouTube that we have got, and he's asking how can we strengthen the head voice? What kind of exercises would you recommend for that?
So actually, the exercise with body, I performed just standing with arms up and down. That's a good exercise. And sometimes what I'm doing is, also, of course, I'm already involving somehow my body. But that's my focus, that body is always involved somehow in voice emission. And what I'm doing, I can present is that whenever I sing this higher note that becomes to the head register, I'm trying to fold a little bit, not too much to not be dizzy. And what I'm doing is that I'm supporting myself just on my knees. Of course, I don't want to strain my neck, but basically I'm just supporting my knees, and I'm singing warm-ups in the particular register, and perform, for example, C, and I perform it C. It's again a little help from gravity. In that position, all our muscles, face is very relaxed, and our cheeks are just pulled also down by gravity. And we can feel how the sound is only placed over here and how easy it is to perform the higher notes.
Well, thank you so much for your detailed explanations and warm-ups and everything. Is really great, and I think it was a really fantastic session for everyone. Gave us a new perspective of how, like as you said, that we only focus on our vocal cords and the region around the neck when we think voice, and now you're making us think of the whole body, which is really amazing. Thank you so much, and yeah, that's the last goodbye for this conference from me.
Thank you.
And,
Yes, I'd like to thank everyone
yeah.
for coming. And I mean, amazing 2 weeks. And thank you. So many of you, I've seen you again every day. So I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you'll join us and register. And thank you, Karolina. I'm going to use all these exercises in my class so with my students. Excellent. Thank you so much. And from America, happy Thanksgiving. And be grateful, and see you all soon at all the wonderful workshops we have coming up in the new year. Take care.
Thank you.